Hey, everybody, welcome back to the pod. Um, Newcomers as well, welcome. We want to thank you for listening. Today, we're going to be talking about hearing your wife's voice. We're going to talk how to, we're going to talk about how this applies in parenting, making purchases, um, you know, giving, all the things.
But yeah, if you've been listening for a while or today's your first time, make sure you connect with us on all of our social channels. It can be Facebook or Instagram, just searching Marriage is Tougher. Or you can also go to marriageisttougher.com if you have any comments for us, if you want to be a guest. So this is a community of men just trying to be better husbands. So we'd really like to keep the conversation going wherever we can. So let's get into this episode.
All right. So, hearing your wife's voice and slash balance in leading. I think, going to help us frame I guess the area we want to focus because this could be a broad topic, as you were
Right.
saying. So,
Absolutely.
um, where would you like to start?
Well, I'd like to talk about what our idea of hearing your wife's voice means in a broad sense. So, in essence, it's how do you lead together?
Mhm.
And obviously, balance and leading, we would, if you think of, that old balance, if that's almost like a teeter totter,
Mhm.
where you can up or down, whatever. It's a scale, right? But you want it to be as even as possible, not just, everything comes down and the weight of it is on one person or the weight of it's, just on us as husbands. We're going to make the decisions because that is not a partnership. That's not a marriage, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
so in my opinion, maybe others may, but just wanted to kind of clarify when I hear, balance and leading and hearing your wife's voice, that's what it is. Like making sure that you're giving space to hear what she's saying.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. It's not a partnership if you're not operating in that manner. Um, yeah, for me, I think I like this topic because I came from a place where, and I've mentioned it on the podcast before, where I was just kind of married, but also living a single life in decision making. Right. Um, so I think though I'm on the other side of this, it's still going to be a helpful conversation for me, right? It'll be a reminder, and maybe I can even share some of the things I've learned in kind of going through my process to change my mindset to really be able to hear my wife's voice, even when I'm somewhere else, or we're apart and decisions need to be made, right? We've known each other long enough where I could think to myself like, oh, she would probably want this way, or you know what I mean. Um, I don't know. It's just been helpful to put her before myself.
Yeah, and I think that's an important way to frame it, right? Because if you're, like we always say, like if you're putting her before yourself and she's putting you before her, then eventually there's that mutuality that comes into play within a marriage, and it makes a marriage healthier and stronger because
Yeah,
you're not being selfish. You're trying to think outside of yourself in all of your actions and all of your decisions, which um, is definitely a lot more give than take, which makes which makes a marriage strong.
yeah. Um,
So, oh,
I'll go ahead. So I just real quick, something popped in my head. If I'm new to getting into this, right, I might have the idea that if we're working so hard to put the other person first, right, and it's a mutual thing, it's it's odd to me that we don't get stuck on decisions, right? Because let's say you have two separate opinions on how something should be done or performed, however you want to say,
Hmm.
um, and you're trying to put them first. I guess the question is, how do we not get stuck, right? Because a decision has to be made, and you're trying to put your wife first, and she's trying to put you first, and the takes are different. How do we progress through that?
Yeah, I would say the quote unquote easiest way would be to pull the best parts of both takes,
Mm.
right? And kind of merge it together as, you know, can we pull a certain aspect of yours and a certain aspect of hers and go for it. Um, or if it's something that comes up a lot, like say it's dinner or directions or something like that, which way to go somewhere, then you just like flip flop. When you can't come to a mutual decision, then you say, okay, well, I'll go this time, you go next time. Whenever we come to a place where we can't decide, you know, you take it next time, right?
Yeah,
Um, that's the way to do the smaller things. The bigger things, um, yeah, there should be aspects that you can pull from and see how you can merge them. Because it's almost like my opinion, her opinion, and then it's like, what's the best combined choice
yeah,
or best combined decision?
yeah. I think that's where it comes up most for us is on the little stuff, right?
Hmm.
It's for whatever reason, it's just easier to get stuck there. Like, what do you want? What do you want to eat? I don't know. Where do you want to go to eat? I don't know. Where do you want to go to eat?
Yeah.
Like, please just decide, right?
Yeah.
But then on bigger stuff, when a decision really needs to be made, it for some reason is, I don't want to say easier to work through, but when there's more importance to it, right? It just kind of gets done because it has to.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not a way to describe why, but
Yeah.
it feels like there is. Well, I think we come to, okay, what can I give up? Like,
Mhm.
if she's not rocking with my decision or I'm not rocking with what she's doing, like, okay, how can we get to a common place? And then the bigger decision, there's kind of more space too, I think. Because sometimes, like eating, for example, like that's just last minute, like
Right.
whatever. But like if it's a big decision, like, are we going to buy this house or where are you going to put this money? That's like, oh, okay, like let's think about this for real. It
Yeah.
might be a little longer of a conversation, but
Right.
again, at the end of the day, we need to get it done. So we'll go through it. And I always lean on just know, and if you and your spouse have come to the decision that you have the other's best interests at heart, sometimes I can just be like, all right, like, you know, maybe I don't agree with you fully, but like I know you're not trying to take us out. So let's try
Yeah.
it and see what happens. And the biggest take on that is not to be spiteful or hold it over their head if like the decision didn't go as fluid as they thought it would, or as you as a couple thought it would when going with her choice per se.
Yeah.
And not beating yourself if it doesn't go out the right way and you were the one that led whatever decision was made to.
Right. And I think going through that process as well, a part of it should be really trying to discover about yourself what things are truly important to you and what things are, like, I want to say, I don't even know how to put it, like false needs, I guess is a good way to put it. Right. There's a lot of things that we stand on that are just like an idea. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you really try to break it down, like what do I really want this for? And it's just something you don't even really want, but somewhere along the line you convinced yourself that was something you wanted. So then it became a need. All of this in your head.
Yeah.
And then, you want to have a disagreement about it.
Yeah. I almost think of it as like when you're trying to sell something on something and you're like, okay, this is, I'm on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, and I throw something up, and I'm like, all right, this is the price. Or you're like, okay, or best offer. You're like, okay, what's the best offer? And you may not have ever thought about that with the thing that you're selling.
Right.
You're like, okay, what? I really want to get rid of it, but like, what's the least I can get rid of it for? You can always say, oh, I'd like to get such and such for it.
Yeah.
But then when the offers come, you're like, no, I'm not giving you this for that. Like, what? So
I'd
it's better
rather
to
it
come with
sit
that.
over there unused.
Right. So, but yeah, taking more stock into, where you really stand on things is important. One, so you can communicate that to your wife, right? Because it may be an area that she's, that is just it's not a stake in the ground type of spot for her, but it was just a good thought. Oh, then she's like, oh, he's not negotiable on this, so I'm not even going to bring that up because, like, I don't really care. Like, I just had a thought about it,
Right. Right.
Because sometimes I hear things from my wife, and I'm like, man, like she's really intense on that, and she's like, no, I just was walking down that thought process. I was like, okay, you know, so
Yeah. And so you really got to make sure there's two-way communication. You really have to make sure of that. And it's funny because there are times when either one of us will walk through a thought process by ourselves, even if we're considering the other person. It's still pertinent to involve them in the conversation, um, simply because they might be thinking something that you haven't considered in the way that they would.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely, we can only see the world through our eyes and through how we've experienced it. When you bring something up to your spouse, then they bring a whole different perspective. And it's not that you missed it or that they're trying to poke holes. It's just they see it differently. And that's why it's so important to hear what your wife is saying in decisions or really in anything, because she sees the world from a different set of eyes.
Yeah. And sidebar to the listeners, I was flipping out a little bit earlier before we started recording because I thought I lost my SD card, but here it is. It was under my foot. I went to move my foot and it slid a little too easily. I'm like, what is that?
Nice.
So the world is saved. um, have you ever failed at this? I know I have. Um, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, and it goes back to even before we were married. I came home with a truck without a discussion, um, and we've worked through that. I think I've been forgiven. Also, the truck is gone.
Yes, the truck is gone.
And we have no car payments anymore. So that's
Hey, turn up. Have I ever failed at this? Yes. Because my life is full of opportunities to do so, right? Your life is full of ideas and things. I mean, for me, a lot of it would happen with stuff with music, because like I play bass, been in bands, been on worship teams type of stuff. So considering like just going to jam out with people and like already saying yes, I can do it, before
right.
being like, do we have anything? Like basically packing up and being out the door like, oh, I'm about to head out. Like what kind of stuff is that? Um but yeah, I have gotten better like that. And it's not even like in that situation and like calendaring and things like that. It's, I know some people are worried about, man, I have to like ask for permission to do stuff. No, it's just like, what do we have that I need to show up for? Because
Right.
about to take myself away and not being able to show up for the next couple hours. So do we have something that I need to like, do I need to be present? Is it with our kids? Is it just literally being here for something? Or is it you want to go to the store, you want to do something else, and you thought I would be here and now you can't because I'm gone? Or now you have to, take all the kids or something else. So now your schedule's off. Um, Something like that. That obviously that's something small, but repetitively that could become an issue.
Yeah.
And if she said, "Hey, let me know when you're going to such and such," and I continually do not let her know, that can become a problem.
Right. Yeah. Do you think it's too much to calendar all of those things? Like even down to the weekly grocery shopping.
It depends on what works for you all.
Yeah.
Like as a couple, whatever works. For me, it works the more that's calendared.
Right.
Because I'm a very structure. Let me lay it out. Let me see it, and I'll just follow everything to the T and get it done. Some people that doesn't work for them because it could be calendared all day and they will just do whatever, or they won't consult the calendar.
Mhm.
But where our life is, it's too busy because there's things that we can't. There's things that we don't talk about unless we see it on the calendar,
Okay.
right? Because life is so busy. It's like, hey, we'll schedule something out with the point of coming back to talk to it. Like one of us would be like, oh, I saw that you put, dinner with the Joneses on the calendar. Like, what are you thinking? Are we going out? Are they coming over? Like all this stuff. But um, instead of just ding dong, like the Joneses are here, like what? You know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a part of the communication process, but it's also a part of understanding what works for you too.
Yeah. I like that. I think I am the same. The more I can have on the calendar, the better. Because not only do I know what's coming up, I know what space I have to plan things. Right. And I think that's probably the biggest part for me, just because I do have so much going on. There are times when, I'll just think, oh, maybe I could fit this in real quick. I just need like 45 minutes to get this done. And it might be something for the business, right? I got to go buy a vacuum, and it's
Mm-hmm.
on the other side of town. Um, and then like I go to talk to her and she's like, oh, I'm about to head out to the store. I'm like, oh, so now I got to
Mm-hmm.
be home with the kids or whatever. And then it's like either a whole thing or it isn't, but like more or less, it's like, am I going to pack all these kids up and take them with me to go buy a vacuum? Which, to be honest with you, they're young enough; they would probably enjoy that. Um, but I don't want to do that to her. Where I'm like, no, I really got to go do this. So can you please go take the kids to go grocery shopping? Like, nah, that's not going to be a thing unless it really absolutely has to be.
Yeah.
But no, my wife, she would just delay and be like, "Yeah, I'll do the shopping another time," because
Yeah.
that's so hard with three little ones grabbing
Mm-hmm.
themselves.
Yep. They all want all the things at the
Yeah,
grocery store. So
yeah,
yeah, so we talked about, different aspects of decision making per se, but how do you hear your wife when you're disagreeing on a higher level than just let's go out to eat? When it's moving to strong-willed argument type things or, really deep discussions. How
yeah.
how does that work in your brain or in your relationship?
So what I've learned to do is state what my position is, um, but then also intently ask her what her opinion is, or what information or facts can she bring to the table if she's already told me what the differences are in her thought process. That what things is she bringing to the table that can help support what she's saying, that might help me change my mind to align with her more, right? And I feel like she deserves for me to do the same, right? Come with supporting information. Um, and I think most recently we dealt with this just in finishing paying off the debt, right? You know, and it's funny because we were both thinking about the same thing separately. And as we had the discussion about it, it almost sounded like we wanted to do things differently. But
Hmm.
then at the end, we discovered that we both wanted to do it the same way. um, but if we had just left it at the surface and not really discussed it fully, someone like could have gotten upset simply because I don't know. And like I said, initially it sounded like we were trying to do something different, but I think the biggest thing is really just fully walking through the conversation to make sure that you get to uh, the decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like in a nutshell, you're saying be willing to stay in that space for a little bit
Yeah.
to fully walk it out. Like, don't check out either mentally or physically. Like, don't
Right. Because
check
there's a
out.
process to it, right?
Yeah.
Coming together, starting the conversation, stating your points, right? And then there's a couple more steps until you actually decide, okay, this we're going to do, this we're not going to do. We need these things, we need to be here. And do we have everything? Okay, let's move forward, right? Um, if you leave out one of those steps, something could fall through. Someone can get upset because they didn't get something they needed, right? So that's what I mean by getting to the point of what the decision actually is going to be is by hitting all the bullet points.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking it all comes down to communication again, right?
Right.
You have to fully communicate. But if we're talking about hearing our wife's voice, I mean, if she is the most important person in your life, like we say she is,
Mhm.
then her words have to hold a certain weight, and her thought process needs to be given the same value, if not more, than how much we give our own thought process.
Right.
Right. So I'm thinking like in any space, right? If we've thought about it for a certain amount of time, we need to give her, once we bring up the topic, she may process it quicker, but like understand at the least you should give her that same amount of time, right? Because we gave our brain enough time to like vet through all the things, and then we just drop it like, oh, we have this fully formed idea and this is what we're doing, so jump on board.
Right.
And it's like, wait a minute, like I didn't even know we were thinking about this. Right? So give me some time to do it. And generally, I mean, when we're brought stuff as well, and generally we process it faster because it's like right here, right now.
Mhm.
Um, and some for me, I'll speak for me. Like sometimes it's little moments of thinking about it that allow me to have a fully formed idea, but it's still over like maybe a day or two, just working, coming back to the idea, working, coming back to it. That's how my mind thinks. Generally speaking, it's not a whole chunk of time where I can say, oh, it took me an hour to make this decision. Um, so just giving her that space and time to process through whatever whatever you're talking about as a couple, as a unit, and
Mhm.
being okay with it. So maybe when you bring it up, like don't bring it up in like a 5 minute. Like I need you to make the decision in 5 minutes. Like we need to do this in 5 minutes. No, like give it at least a half hour. Give it at least a half hour's worth of time that like maybe you're gonna watch TV or kind of just hang out. That type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You got me thinking about maybe having another conversation on making sure our voices are heard as well. Right. Just because in that little rant you had, I was thinking there are times where I might not say everything I want to say. Right. I might be considering her or I might be considering how she might react to something. And if I think that is going to create something negative, I might not get off of my mind what I want to get off my mind. But there's no benefit to that. right? Because then I'm just stewing on something and, feeling like I lost something, whether I did or not.
Yeah, we might we might have to have a full conversation, but what I'm thinking about is this one of your like or one of our, because I do the same thing, is this one of my false truths? Or is this one of my ideas of this is really a stance that I need to take? Or, you know, either way, you need time to process that. And
Yeah.
it may happen as you're saying whatever you're saying, and they're like, oh, actually, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes the reaction that I get, the actual time span before I can say it doesn't matter, I can't get to the it doesn't matter because she has something to say about my comments or my process. And
Right.
then in the middle, I'm like, oh, this really matters more to her than it does to me.
Yeah.
And, or it doesn't really matter that much to me. But like now she still has to process it all out verbally. So, so that might be one of the reasons why I may not say the things as well. I'm like, does it really matter enough to say? So,
Yeah.
but
So,
that's good.
hey, let us know if you want us to have a conversation about making sure, as men, our voices are heard as well, and we'll put that in the queue. But is there anything you want to wrap up with? Because we're a little bit over time.
Yeah, we're about to get there. Um, no, I think that's all. That's about it. Just really make sure you remember to value your wife in all things, especially in communication. And that's really what it comes down to, making sure you hear what she's saying and letting her know that her opinion matters, and that her thoughts, will be cared for by us as husbands.
Cool.
All right. Well, if you got any value out of this, again, let us know. Hit us up on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, Searching Marriage is Tougher, or hit us up on our website. We have a form on the bottom. You can let us know how you feel about the show or if you want to be a guest. So we appreciate you, um, spending time and joining this conversation.
Talk to you next time.